Blue Moon with Larry Hart, played by Ethan Hawke, and Dick Rodgers, played by Andrew Scott. Set in 1943, after the opening of Oklahoma Blue Moon, we've got a period piece for you, with Rodgers and Hammerstein too, who would have much success to go. Whoa, whoa, whoa. Blue Moon features lots of good dialogue, and Margaret Qualley as a blonde, which will have you on the floor while you're watching Blue Moon, which was directed by Richard Linklater, who did A Scanner Darkly, School of Rock. Yes, the man that did that film also did this. Hard to believe when you see the tonal differences. He also did Before Sunset, Sunrise, all that stuff, etc. He also did Hitman. I did not like Hitman. This is also written by Robert Kaplow. Yeah, Kaplow. Nobody that is not a deep-cut wrestling fan will get that. He did Me and Orson Welles. If you take a look at his IMDb page, he is actually not done. I'm actually kind of surprised. He hasn't been up to much if he's putting out a screenplay like this. So basically, this is a fictionalized version of basically the last moments of Loren/Larry Hart's life. If you don't know who Larry Hart is, Google him. I'm not going to go into everything about it, but you had Hart and Rodgers. Dick Rodgers, stop laughing. This is serious. Played by Andrew Scott from All of Us Strangers. And I don't want to talk about that movie anymore because it'll make me cry. I wanted to throw myself down an escalator after watching it. It was great, but God, it was sad. Anyway, they used to do a lot of great songs and, productions together, but then Dick Rodgers decided to go with Hammerstein, Oscar Hammerstein II, and Oklahoma had its big opening successful night, and now we have the after party, so to speak, and really this is like a 93 to 95 minute movie where you get Ethan Hawke acting pretty goddamn good. And also you get Margaret Qualley as a blonde. Sweet fucking Christ, she is a goddess. With respect. Talented, hilarious. Her and Aubrey Plaza are pretty much the best parts of Honey Don't in more ways than one. But Margaret can make any role work. She can sink her proverbial teeth into it. I think that's how it goes. And the thing about this movie is costume-wise, how it's shot, the music, very, very good stuff. Theater kids and those that are more into the history of theater and the history of Hart, Rodgers, and Hammerstein will probably get more out of this than, say, a novice like myself. But as somebody that has a surface knowledge, fictionalized or not, this is actually a pretty damn good movie. I was very surprised. I actually drove about, 20 miles from my house to go to a theater that was the closest theater showing it, and then went and watched Regretting You, depending on what order you see these reviews in. Just so you know. And essentially, we just get, Hart kind of he's sort of putting on a facade because we get the sense that while he's happy for his friend Dick Rodgers in the 24th and a half century, had the silly thing in reverse. While he's happy, you can tell that things are starting to unravel. And we actually do get an opening scene that pretty much indicates that. If you don't know how Hart's life actually ended, wasn't all that great. Really wasn't. But I did like the character of Morty, played by Jonah Leese. He actually was pretty good. Patrick Kennedy plays E.B. White. And Bobby Cannavale, who is an Ezra. He's been in a lot of stuff. He's a really good character actor. He plays bartender. There's the cigarette girl. There's one character that's played by Elaine O'Dwyer, who's beautiful. At least as far as I could tell. Very ethereal quality to her. But nevertheless, we essentially just get Hart's life and the people to interact and everything. And some people are bit players that don't have, they just have bit roles. They don't have speaking roles in people's lives. And then while you could be important in yours, you're just a bit role, a non-speaking role in somebody else's life. And it's a beautifully told story with, fictionalized or not, it's just it only takes place it takes place mainly in the bar. It takes place in a couple other rooms, but it really is just a one fucking location shoot. But it's actually a one location shoot that works. I'm actually very surprised by how much this worked. I'm not saying it's one of the best movies of the year. I have some issues. Mainly that the movie, while very, very beautifully told and very beautifully shot, and that's just Margaret with respect, that absolute enchantress that she is. The way Ethan Hawke's character fawns over her. I mean, it's supposed to be for like a muse thing and that kind of stuff, and an older man loving really appreciating a young, pretty thing, but fawning over Margaret is very relatable, because I don't know how anybody couldn't. I don't care what gender, you aren't, and what gender, you are. It's like, it is hard not to fawn over that beauty. That being said, some other good stuff, but it's obvious basically that there was tension that led to Rogers saying Hart gave him his start. He kickstart the Hart, as it were. I'm so sorry. And he basically made sure that, Hart was respected, and he still appreciates the fact that he got his career started, but he needed to do something else. But if your head's on straight, it's like, let's work on this, Larry. Let's do this stuff. His history speaks for itself. Rodgers and Hammerstein. Go Google what Rodgers and Hammerstein did. I'm going to get into a couple spoilers, but not much. So that's your warning. It's in theaters if you want to check it out. Hopefully more people do. 3, 2, 1, and spoilers. So basically, we open up with Lorenz Larry Hart. It's listed as Lorenz, but they keep calling him Larry. He basically passes out in a goddamn drunken stupor in an alleyway, and actually did die 4 days later at a hospital. And this is set in 1943, and we basically do get several months earlier the opening of Oklahoma, where the winds come sweeping down the plains and away we go. And over there, all the good songs and good piano playing by Morty, assuming that was actually him playing. That was Jonah playing. If it wasn't, whoever was playing it, good job, but regardless. And I like the interactions. It was just like sitting in on, a bar scene and watching people in 1940s drama, just a serial, whatever, interacting. Larry does have affection for Elizabeth. And while Elizabeth does love him, there is one theme that, one line they reference Casablanca, and love and loss and that kind of stuff. Is like, I love you, but just not that way. And that's stuff that's actually haunted Larry's life. And that stuff that's haunted other people's lives and stuff like that. And basically, Larry wishes to be with Elizabeth, but it just isn't meant to be. And I'm not upset at the movie, by the way. I'm just crumpling up my notes. But Eddie, Bobby's character, is trying to get him to maybe drink a little less. Once Dick shows up, I'm sorry, but it's just impossible for me not to make a joke about that. Once Dick Rogers shows up, all the lavish praise about Oklahoma and stuff like that, and Larry appreciates that his former partner of 24 years has success, but he really just wants to ingratiate himself still, but he's mentally not prepared. He's just mentally not there. And basically, Dick says, look, if you're willing to go see a psychiatrist, see this kind of stuff, I don't need to do that. You kind of do. You're sick, Larry. You kind of do. If you're doing okay, we'll do this, but if you're not doing well, then we can't do this. And Larry's idea is to do a thing about Marco Polo. Lavish stuff, make fun of everything, make fun of every play, every bit of a musical, that kind of stuff. And really, there isn't a ton to spoil in this, so I do apologize if this is bouncing around. And Margaret bounces in and out, looking just fabulous. You really could just put her in a 40s picture, and she would just look amazing. Just amazing. No wonder no wonder, she has the mom she has. I mean, Andie MacDowell, nothing wrong with Andie MacDowell. Still just living a quiet life and everything, but still Andie MacDowell for years and years. Absolutely. And the talent and the beauty carried on into Margaret. And realistically, it is just about Larry's life unraveling, where it's like, it seems like he's doing okay, and he did contribute songs to a Connecticut Yankee, but he ended up not doing all that well because, unfortunately, mentally, the drinking, that kind of stuff, whatever, he just ended up basically collapsing, and that was where the movie basically ended. There was a nice scene between Ethan and Margaret where she's describing a 20th birthday celebration, and a guy couldn't get the condom on, but then decided to do a rain check and then decided to show up, and they did that, but then he never called, he never wrote her, and he basically just moved on. But she said that even with that, if he dropped, or if he called upon her, she'd drop everything. And Larry didn't understand it. I mean, he did, and also I think he recognized that's why it was kept at a distance, but still, she says, I love you, Larry, just not that way. And Larry was so confident, I think, and I think that confidence got shattered. Andrew Scott was really fabulous as Dick Rogers in the 24. Sorry, I said that bit already. But he was fabulous as Dick. Going back to All of Us Strangers. I kid, of course. I kid. But Andrew Scott was very good in this as well. Really just terrific performances all around. So, for those who know how his life ended, it does end with some text about, Rogers and Hammerstein having massive success. Larry's contributions. But essentially it ends with just, the sad end of his life. I did like the bar scene. I thought Bobby did a great job as Eddie. The pictures, the drawings of people that were all around and everything, and they had the pictures of the various people, including Larry. And it was just nice. It was looking for Larry, except, this is a more legit operation. If you get it, you get it. Certainly a pretty good movie. Again, I mean, I'm not going to call it like one of the absolute best of the year, but I'll definitely give it an A- for the aesthetic and the performances and stuff like that. It misses the mark of an A+, but still pretty goddamn good. So that being said, let me know your thoughts in the comments. Like, share, subscribe, Twitter, Letterboxd, Blue Sky handles in the description. I'm John Ritland. Until we go to 1943 for the opening of Oklahoma again, not until the device is complete, but my time machine is in the watch. Happy trails to you.